Did Europe quietly lose its faith? For years, the story seemed settled. Empty pews, silent cathedrals, a continent drifting away from its spiritual roots. But that narrative is beginning to fracture. According to emerging reports, Catholicism in Europe is not fading. It is reawakening. In this video, we are uncovering 10 European countries where the Catholic faith is seeing a surprising resurgence. Some of these are historic strongholds, while others will challenge everything you thought you knew about modern Europe. Let us begin. Number 10 is Luxembourg. Luxembourg is one of the wealthiest nations on earth. Its capital consistently ranks among the highest in the world for per capita income. The conventional assumption is that wealth and religious practice move in opposite directions. The more comfortable a society becomes, the less it reaches for faith. Luxembourg is complicating that assumption. The country has become a crossroads of global Catholicism, largely driven by its international workforce. Polish, Portuguese, Italian, and Filipino Catholics have arrived to work in EU institutions, bringing active parish cultures with them and filling churches that native Luxembourgers had been quietly vacating. What has emerged is a congregation that reflects global Catholicism in miniature. When Pope Francis visited, it was a pastoral confirmation that their small, wealthy, internationally complicated country was visible to the church's center. The revival here is quiet, demographically complex, but undeniably real. Number 9 is Slovenia. Slovenia spent decades inside Yugoslavia under a communist government that treated religious practice as a political liability. Churches were monitored and priests were pressured, so the faith went private. It moved into kitchens and living rooms. It survived in whispered prayers and in grandmothers who taught their grandchildren the Our Father in voices low enough that only the family could hear. When Slovenia gained independence in 1991, those whispered prayers were free to become public again. What emerged was not an immediate flood of institutional religiosity, but something organic. Lay movements began gathering young adults who had grown up in secular, post-communist households. Movements like the Focolare have been particularly effective at drawing young Slovenians into coherent Catholic community life, not through obligation, but through genuine friendship and a structured moral framework that the surrounding secular culture could not offer. Number 8 is Malta. Malta's relationship with Catholicism does not require revival in the conventional sense, because it never fully left. What Malta represents on this list is the endurance of unbroken continuity. According to the Acts of the Apostles, St. Paul himself was shipwrecked on Malta in approximately 60 AD. 14 centuries of continuous Catholic practice followed, through Arab occupation, Norman rule, and British colonial administration. None of it severed the connection. Today, Catholic feast days in Malta are full-scale public events. Brass bands process through narrow streets, and fireworks fill the sky above parish churches. The entire rhythm of Maltese public life, its calendar, its architecture, its social gatherings, is organized around the Catholic liturgical year in a way that has almost disappeared from mainland Europe. In Malta, the faith is not a private conviction. It is the shared air of the place. Number 7 is Kosovo. Kosovo is a predominantly Muslim country that emerged from a brutal war in the late 1990s with deep wounds. The Catholic minority survived that period through silence, endurance, and the refusal to disappear. But survival alone does not explain what is happening now. The more significant factor is what the church did after the war ended. Caritas, the Catholic humanitarian network, moved into devastated communities with food, shelter, and reconstruction assistance. They served without discrimination. Muslim and Catholic families received the same help. That practical, non-partisan charity built a reputation no amount of preaching could produce. Today, young Kosovars are looking at the Catholic community as an institution that stayed, that helped, and that continues to offer stability in a rebuilding society. Number 6 is Norway. Norway is one of the most secular societies in the world, where the cultural assumption is that serious, thoughtful people have moved beyond institutional religion. This makes the small but growing phenomenon of native Norwegian conversion to Catholicism genuinely surprising. While migration plays a role, the more striking development is native Norwegians, writers, academics, and professionals formed entirely within secular culture, choosing to convert. They describe being drawn to the Catholic Church's ancient structure, its philosophical depth, and the stillness of its traditional liturgy. In a culture that has stripped away institutional frameworks in the name of total individual freedom, the Church offers a structure that does not negotiate its terms. Norway's secular culture produced a spiritual hunger in its most thoughtful inhabitants that it was simply not equipped to feed. Number 5 is Switzerland. In cities cities like Zurich and Geneva, centers of European finance and technology, a growing number of adults are seeking adult baptism into the Catholic Church. Many of them have no religious background whatsoever. Switzerland has optimized for comfort, freedom, and personal autonomy. But inside that optimization, a specific kind of restlessness has emerged among young professionals. They have discovered that maximum choice without a moral framework produces exhaustion. The Catholic Church offers them the exact opposite, an institution that makes demands rather than accommodation. For adults who have spent their lives in an environment that tells them to construct their own values, discovering an ancient framework that existed long before them carries a profound and genuine appeal. Number 4 is Sweden. Sweden occupies a particular place in the sociology of European secularism. Today, it is among the most thoroughly secular societies on earth, where religious identity among the youth is largely viewed as irrelevant. And yet, a distinct current is moving in the opposite direction. Swedish artists, writers, and cultural figures are converting to Catholicism at a visible rate. What draws this particular demographic is not just community, it is transcendence. The Catholic Mass, especially in its traditional forms, offers an aesthetic and spiritual experience that post-secular Swedish culture has removed from public life entirely. The incense, the Latin, the unbroken connection to an ancient ritual functions as a genuine countercultural act. In Sweden, choosing Catholicism is not conformity. It is the most radical thing a thinking person can do. Number 3 is England. Henry VIII break from the Catholic Church inaugurated centuries of legal discrimination and cultural distance. But what is happening in England now involves multiple streams returning to Rome. The personal ordinariate of Our Lady of Walsingham, established in 2011, created a formal door for Anglican clergy and lay people to enter Catholic communion. Entire congregations have crossed through, drawn by a desire for doctrinal stability amidst internal divisions within Anglicanism. Alongside this runs a deeper intellectual current. The legacy of G.K. Chesterton and Cardinal John Henry Newman continues to shape how educated English people understand their faith. England's return to Rome is not a rupture. For many making the journey, it feels like a completion. Number 2 is Ireland. Ireland's story requires honesty. The late 20th and early 21st centuries delivered institutional scandal that shattered the relationship between Irish Catholics and their church. Decades of concealed abuse produced a collapse of trust that drove a generation away from the pews. And yet, something grassroots is happening underneath that narrative. A new generation of young Irish people, raised in secular households with no loyalty to institutional history, is finding its way to Eucharistic adoration and the Mass. Movements like Youth 2000 are drawing hundreds of young adults to prayer retreat. They are not returning to the church of their grandparents. They are encountering Catholicism as if for the first time, on their own terms, and finding something that secular alternatives have not provided. Ireland's revival is quiet and fragile, which may be exactly why it is real. And number 1 is France. France gave the world the Enlightenment and is deeply committed to keeping public life rigorously secular, which makes what is currently happening in French Catholicism one of the most unexpected stories in Europe. Adult baptisms at the Easter Vigil have been rising for several consecutive years. Young French women, many with no religious upbringing, are presenting themselves for baptism in numbers that mark a genuine cultural shift. Digital evangelization has played a huge role, reaching young people entirely outside traditional parishes. And then there is Notre Dame. The fire that tore through the cathedral in 2019 produced a grief that surprised France itself. A country that argued religion was a private matter discovered that burning a cathedral hurt in a way losing a museum would not. The restoration of Notre Dame carried that same weight in reverse. Something was being rebuilt that France had not fully admitted it needed. This is a generation of young French people making a deliberate intellectual choice to be baptized into an ancient faith in the country that most forcefully argued they should not need it. That is your top 10. 10 completely different reasons why the story of European Catholicism is more complicated than the headlines suggest. Now we want to hear from you. Which country's revival surprised you the most? Drop it in the comments below. If you want more deep dives into Catholic history and culture, subscribe to this channel and hit the bell. And if this video moved you, please like it to help more people find us. We will see you in the next one.